Unless the NPPF recognises the intrinsic value of the whole countryside, not just its special areas, we fear a rash of sporadic and inappropriate development across the country, disfiguring the local landscape, which is so valued by local communities.
Coalition brought in some large developers to advise them. And guess what they did? They advised them to allow building on greenfield land. And they put in place a planning inspectorate that costs 40 billion a year. We pay the money and then they override our wishes. And yet in the NPPF it says this is to meet the aspirations of the people. Can you believe how disingenuous that is? The developers, of course, don't own any brownfield land, do they? They need to be forced to do that, and we've got ideas as to how we might influence them to make them do that.
In the Battersea gas station development, there is not a single property that will be sold there for less than £10 million. And the majority of those properties will be left empty because people will buy them as an investment and sell them later on. There's one that's going, the most expensive there is £30 million, the kind of thing that we can all aspire to in the next couple of years. Now, because of that, they then look south towards the south coast, places like West Sussex, East Sussex, etc. What we see here is affordable housing that should be 40% of each development down to 10%. And so young people and people on a normal wage, first-time buyers, cannot afford it. The government's own figures estimate that by 2030 there will be more people renting accommodation in this country than owning it. We have to look again at how the legislation for planning in this country has taken the authority away from the local council, from local people, and placed it into unelected inspectors and property developers who are only interested in making a huge profit with the smallest number of properties. And until we change that, nothing is going to happen.
Developers are producing accommodation and housing which is so unaffordable to the majority. It's not right, it's not fair, it's not just. And it's not just rich people in this country that are buying those properties, it's people from abroad that are buying those properties at the expense of local residents all around the country. And this government and previous governments have just allowed that to happen. It's wrong.
We need to blame Boris, because Boris has allowed investors from overseas to come over here and buy up London. We have all those flats, high value, empty. The values in London have gone up so high that people are now moving out into London, into places like West Sussex. That's where the pressure on West Sussex is coming from. And until that is stopped by the repeal of the NPPF, we are really stuck to stop using housing as an investment.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier what we think of as affordable houses, that it's linked to property prices, not to wages. And at the same time, we have banks and agents as well pumping up those prices, literally printing money by lending more and more, larger and larger mortgages for people to pay back. We need to deal with the bubble that is in the housing market. Everything is the bubble that's happened over the last 30 years is quite obviously unsustainable.
A number of North Horsham landowners waited and have cashed in at the expense of their community to sell that farmland north of the A264. It is almost not worth getting elected these days to district and borough councils, because the NPPF has robbed us of almost every decision making in planning. What we need is that we need teeth at the local level, and we need to be able to force developers to pay their proper contributions.
The NPPF has its flaws, but I won't what people do on district councils. there's an incredibly powerful role they can play in working with the developers to ensure that the right developments are created. And in terms of affordable housing, I believe the target is 30% locally. It's 40%, I believe, in Crawley. There is influence that they can bring to bear, and that's incredibly valuable in getting the communities that we need.